Welcome to Kingdom Mothers Rise Up, where I encourage and equip you to heal your heart and renew your mind so you can live the fully abundant life Jesus promised you. Let's go. It's time to move. Today's episode of Kingdom Mothers Rise Up is a conversation with Brenda Schumman. Brenda has over 18 years of experience as a therapist, and she is currently a missionary in Honduras, where she loves on the women and children and the people in her village. I'm just sharing a conversation with you today. We just started off with how she was doing and let the Holy Spirit lead our conversation from there. Brenda is a friend and coach and mentor, and I think that you'll enjoy our conversation today. All right. How are you?
Good. It's been a day here already, but I actually like it when that happens because I just know how that works. You know, like when it's been a day already, how much goodness is on the other side of that the enemy's trying to keep me from, because it has been like nuts crazy. Like I locked myself house, like out of the entire property I locked myself out of, and it's just been, I had an encounter with our warlock here. Like it's just been stuff that's like, I see you. I see you, and I know what's happening today, and I know that this is going to be a powerful call with you, and then I'm gonna right back to back. I have the workshop today, and so I'm like, I see you.
And that's such a good perspective to have, instead of like, oh, I feel so beat up and this is so terrible. Just like, okay, I see you. So clearly what I'm doing matters.
Yeah, it's almost like I have started to take it as almost like a promise that something big, like good big is coming. Like I'm like, okay.
Yeah, it reminds me of, it was years ago. My son was, I don't know, in his teens, 14 to 16, somewhere, but he was like, God is so good that our enemy is actually our quality control inspector.
Interesting. Isn't that interesting?
So it's like, yeah, those places he can get to us are like, oh, that needs some work. Thanks for pointing that out to me.
It's interesting how the enemy actually works against himself so often. And sometimes I'm like, you're just so dumb. It just showed me like you actually made the blueprint for me. So thank you. But it took me a long time to get that perspective, right? Like I used to get so stuck in what was happening that I couldn't even see beyond that. But yeah, our quality control, that's a great way to put it.
So what's that journey been like to go from the place where you were just stuck in it to now where you're like, okay, I see you. Today's going to be amazing.
I don't actually have like one pinpoint thing. Like I can't be like, oh, like this is the day that I got it. Like I
like that.
It's like been this slow like fade over the last whatever. But I will say this last 6 months here has been ridiculously hard. Like in terms of like just my own safety, like basic needs of like food and shelter and safety and like basic things. And then when my dad died, I have just been pushed to like the edge with the enemy this last 6 months. There became no other option, because I would have been lost in all of that. You know what I mean? Like it would have that the last 6 months would have taken me out had I continued to just focus on that. And so I feel like that the Lord just allowed me to be pushed to the edge of everything in order to say there's a different way to look at all of this. I don't have a better answer.
So what's that different? Well, I love that you don't have a like, oh, I learned this one little thing and it fixed everything, because that's always driven me nuts my whole life of like, okay, God, give me that little thing. Like I'm trying to find it, you know, this one book, this one seminar changed my whole life. I'm like, no.
I think I've had powerful, do you know what I mean? Like I get powerful encounters and I get powerful deliverance, honestly, that I think changes it all, but it's a collection of all of those.
Yeah.
right? It's not
And
like
then
I can like, oh, there's one thing.
well, and I think what's so often missing is it's the walking out of that healing or that deliverance or that revelation or whatever. So it's instead of it, I'd be more accurate to be like, this was the catalyst, like this was the starting point of all that changed rather than that changed everything. Like
For
that's just
sure.
the starting point of, like you said, of going, oh, I need to look at this differently, or there is a different way to look at this. But then, like, what does the walking out of looking at it differently look like?
It's like marriage, right? Like we think that like getting to the altar, getting married is like the accomplishment. And it's literally only the start of so much stuff that we don't even understand, right?
Yeah.
So it's so much like that. And that's exactly what like today, as I was locked out of my property with no key and we have, because of my security issues, had to like, this place is locked down. Like there's not like, there used to be ways that I could be like, I could maybe climb over that wall. Like, but we have like locked it down for my own safety issues here. And I'm standing outside there without keys, knowing that I had to get on this call in an hour, knowing that I had other things to still prepare. I had a long list of messages to still return. And I'm standing out there by myself going, I can choose to like cry right now, which is what I really want to do. I'm stressed out. Or I can choose to say a few prayers and trust that he's going to do something and understand this for what it is, take my authority and stand in that. And, but it becomes a conscious choice, right? Like it's not something that I'm like, oh, well, let me just do this. Like, no, I am now in the place where I can see both options. I used to be in the past, I couldn't even see both options, right? I just saw one option and that was like to fall apart. But now I see both options and I have to choose the one that I want. And maybe in the future, I'll just see the one that's right and I won't even consider the other one anymore. I don't know. But that wasn't today. Like today was like, I might sit down here and cry. Like, but it's like, it's making those conscious choices like every single day, all day long, right? Like, it's not like there's not an easy button to this. And so often I think we want to have an easy button and there's just not.
It's that learning to trust. But if it was just easy to try, like if it was just, okay, just trust me. And now we have this rose garden life, no trust would be required.
No, and that's why he doesn't let us do that. You know what I mean? Like, because we're selfish and we're self-centered and we would start to run without him. Or at least I can say that for me. Like, they absolutely know that about myself. But if he did not,
even with all the challenges, I go off and run without him. So.
For sure, because somehow I still know better than he knows, even though what I am doing isn't working. Like, for sure. And he knows that about me. And so he's like, I just have to bring you to your knees pretty much every single day. and then it works out well. I think when we do lose sight of that, walking it out, that's when we're in trouble.
Yeah. If we slip into thinking that like, oh, I figured that out. Now I can focus on something else.
Right. Like I pushed the easy button and now I've arrived and it's no longer an issue. I think that's a very dangerous place to be.
Yeah, because then we're stepping back into confidence in ourselves and our abilities instead of in him in us. Yeah, fighting those battles on our own of, oh, I thought I've done this before. I thought I'd figured this out. And like, so, like, so what if you did? Like, it doesn't mean you don't need him this time.
Right. If that was ever true, my life would be so much different. It's never true. It's never true that like, oh, I've done that before, so I don't have to anymore. He's like, no. But that's the character of a good father. He wants us to continue to come back to him. Right? Like that's his heart, is for us to always continue to come back over and over and over again.
Yeah. And to be growing of like, yeah, you did. You learned that. You learned to trust me here. You learned to take authority over that. But now let's go a little deeper, or now let's go a little different direction because you're not done yet. Like,
right.
I'm still working on growing you to be like Jesus.
Exactly. And we'll never arrive there.
Yes, I think so many people, I know me in the past too, have felt like if I'm dealing with something that feels familiar and feels similar that I felt like I dealt with before, whether it's a relationship where I thought I forgave them, I thought I worked through this, or whether it's fear of what people think or like whatever, and then it comes up again and we want to like throw out everything. Like, oh, I haven't changed, I didn't learn anything or whatever. And God's like, no, we're just going deeper. Brene Brown that talks about what you make something mean. There's probably lots of things that talk about what you make something mean, but like what we make it mean matters so much.
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, from a brain perspective, that's exactly how the brain works, is that something happens and the brain just automatically seeks to make meaning and to fill in that gap. Like and that's actually our like response mechanism to keep us safe. Right. And so it actually pulls from past events. Like our brain will automatically do this where like something will happen and our brain automatically searches in the past to see if anything similar has happened so that it can fill in that same meaning. And that's why people stay triggered or stay stuck in triggers when they don't heal, because your brain is doing what your brain is meant to do, which is to pull stuff from the past to keep you safe. So everything that we do focuses off of what meaning we have made. Everything that we do.
Mm-hmm.
So much about shifting and growing and healing is learning to make a new meaning, right? Like giving up the old meaning in order to make a new meaning.
Mm-hmm.
And you have to not only heal and release the old meaning, but you have to begin new ones then, right? Like you have to put the new stuff in there, and that only comes by walking it out. That's just the way the brain works.
I love that connection, because I think in the like inner healing stuff I'd been taught, or the way I interpreted it anyway, was that like you would take that trigger point and you take it to the Lord and he gives you his meaning and like he fixes it. And so then, okay, I'm better now. But unless he miraculously like fixes your entire brain at the same time, which he could do and does sometimes, but more likely he's just set that new process in motion and now you get to walk it out to solidify this new meaning in your brain.
Yeah. And so I think both happens, right? Like I've had healing where I've been like the same exact situation has come up for me. And I was like, whoa, like 3 months ago that triggered me and I was all over. And like now it doesn't even faze me. Like I have to think about like, why am I not responding? Like just shocked. So I think there is that type of, but I also think that there's the type of healing where like you have to walk it out. And I think it's intentional on his part. I mean, I don't mean to speak for God, of course, but I think it's intentional on his part that it continues to make us come back to him and be like, I'm going to trust you that what you said is what you said is what you said. Right. Like it's a choice. Like, so every time we get there, we have to choose him when we walk things out. And I think that's very intentional on his part as a good father that wants us to be like, yeah, I gave you the new meaning, but now I need you to show up every single day and act like you believe me.
Yeah, for sure. Like I'm definitely walking that out right now in a situation that like this fear just keeps coming up and like questioning, did I do it right? Is this right? Is that? And he's like, what did I tell you? What did I tell you? And so that choosing to come back again and again to like, okay, this is what you said, like everything, like all my coming up of like, no, I have to be wrong. There has to be some, like they said this, it has to be true. Him being like, okay, but why not like do the same for me? Like I said it, why doesn't that have to be true? Like, and so sorting through like how much of that is just the old, like my brain doing what he designed it to do, that like this is what it meant in the past, so this has to be what it means now, And then how much is the enemy being like, oh, I know what buttons to push. We're going to throw this thought at you again. We're going to throw this thought at you again. And either way, whether it's my brain or the enemy, like the answer is to go back to the Lord and be like, okay, but you said,
Yeah.
you said that
Here's the truth.
I'm the righteousness of Christ. And you said that you're working all things for my good. And you said to watch what you will do, like walking it out.
We'll be right back.
Heart Doodling with Jesus is a membership where I do a live workshop once a month where we explore an emotion or an idea through doodling, which is just a simple creative process. I encourage you to draw with permanent markers and paint with watercolor paint to create space to listen to your emotions, the thoughts that are in your head, and what the Lord wants to say to you. And it's not about creating art. It is not about being good at it. It's about practicing the pause to go, what am I really feeling? What do I really think? What do I really believe on this particular topic? And giving you tools that you can use for yourself and with your kids to continue to explore your emotions outside of the workshops. You can come back and do workshops again and again if you're in the membership, but you also can take the practice that I'm teaching you and do it on your own for what's going on in your life. If you're interested in joining me, there's a link in the description.
Yeah, I mean, and so that's where those, I call them little girl lies, but it's all the lies of the enemy. They all come in early in life in these places where we make meaning. And that's how the enemy does it, because he doesn't have, the all powerful presence and knowing that the Lord does. So he just programs our brains from very early, and we just keep running in that same circle, right? Over and over and over again. And I think it's really silly for us to think sometimes that the enemy is going to allow us to just be like, hey, I got healed and I'm going to walk great going forward. And there's not going to be any issues in this anymore. Like, he's just not going to let you leave. He's had this, like, for me, it was like 20, 30, 40 years that I've had these, little girl lies that I have lived out. And to think that the enemy is just going to be like, yeah, you can go free now. Like, no. And I think the beautiful thing about that wrestle and the Lord making us walk this out then is it builds our authority. Yeah. It builds in us then to every time we do this battle and we win it, it says to us, no, you can't have me. No, I did crush that lie. It is no longer there, but it builds our authority in that process. So it's the beautiful thing of whether the Lord intentions it that way or it's just one of those good things that he brings from evil. I don't know. But I feel like that's what happens when we are forced to walk out what those, the change of what those lies used to be, if that makes sense.
Yeah, there's so much benefit of walking it out, like the relationship that it builds with the Lord. Because if it's like, okay, I don't know, like when your kids are playing and they bump their knee and they come back and like, they just need a kiss and then they're off again, you're there and whatever, but like how much relationship were you building versus if they come with a broken relationship and they come and they sit and they talk and they want advice and, so I guess like that growing of relationship, because we can have that toddler relationship with the Lord where like, okay, Lord, come fix this. All right. You kissed it better. Now I'm off again. Or like the teenage young adult relationships where they're like, I'm dealing with really hard stuff, Mom. How do I navigate this? And what do I do with this person doing this? And how do we learn to communicate better in our marriage? Like all the depth of relationship that comes with bringing the struggle and them trusting the relationship, so to have that maturing relationship with the Lord instead of staying in that child of like, here's my list. Thank you. Now I'm off. Yeah, for sure. That's a great analogy. And then it also like, it builds our authority because we're getting to know God better so that we can trust more his word. And he tells us we have authority, but then we're actually experiencing that too, to be like, okay, so this emotion, this fear, whatever that used to just completely take me out, I can now look at it and be like, not today. Like, I see you, check with the Lord if there's anything I need to do about this, and then I'm moving on. Like, we've got things to do. I don't need to be stuck in the pit.
We've got other things to do.
Yeah. I think go get other people out of their pits. I don't need to go back in mine.
Exactly. But isn't that is so true though, of like the enemy's tactic of trying to keep us distracted and in our own pit so that we cannot go reach somebody else out of theirs. I mean, that is really our job as Christians, is to go bring other people out of their pits, non-believers especially. And the enemy is so good at just keeping us circling in our own that we never get out. And I think once you take that perspective of, oh, you're not going to beat me at this. Like, that's where I've had to get to, of like, oh no, you're not going to beat me at this. You're not going to keep me stuck here, because I know what it is that I'm here to do. And it's to pull someone else out. And I can't do that if I'm sitting in my own. So not today, Satan, not today.
Yeah. And it just shows why he's not going to just let us walk scot-free when we're, the greater freedom we walk in, the bigger threat we are to his kingdom. Yeah, it doesn't make sense that he's going to leave us alone, yet his impact can be so much less as we grow in the like, oh, I see you. And since that's what you're doing, I know this is what I need to do.
Yeah.
So good to be growing and to, I guess just like a more mature perspective, I guess, of instead of how I'm hurting, what's going on with me, but like, I'm good. I'm with the Lord. And even if things are hard and confusing and whatever, like ultimately I'm good. So I can focus resources elsewhere.
Yeah. And I think it becomes, I'm good because he's good. Right.
Absolutely.
Like that's the place where I had to get to, is like, I'm good because he's good and he's got me. And I have that trust in him, that even when bad things happen, because they're going to, he's still got me and he's still going to bring something good out of it.
Yeah, definitely.
And you have to know that more than just be. I was just thinking in my head, I was like, well, that's cute, Brenda, because you could have said that a year ago, but you really weren't walking that out a year ago. Like, you could get pushed to new levels. And I think we say the right things sometimes, but like, it really becomes like that distance between your head and your heart. Like, you can say that you know that that's the truth, but is your heart really behind it and being like, yeah, honestly, like it's going to be bad and he's going to bring something good and I'm going to be okay with that. I'm going to be okay with that. That for me was the hard part. Like, I could understand in my head, like, he's going to bring something good out of anything that's bad and bad things will happen. La, la, la. Like, I could speak all that Christian lingo, but my heart did not believe that I was going to be okay through it.
Yeah.
And that's the place that I had to get to. And I still am not like 100. So please don't ever think that I have this massive, I do not. But there's a difference between that head knowledge and that heart knowledge, for sure.
Yeah. There's such a difference between being able to say the truth and being able to like really walk in that peace that passes understanding.
Yeah.
Like, yep, whatever comes.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know, my daughter watched a bunch of, I think they were called torchbearer videos of like Christian martyr stories. And just like to walk in that level, Corrie ten Boom and, I can't remember the guy's name. He started Voice of the Martyrs. Like, just the faith that like I can walk into anything and be fine because I'm on God's side.
Yeah.
I don't know, like what a threat you are to the kingdom of darkness. If you walk in that, like in I cannot remember his name, but the guy that started Voice of the Martyrs, now I can't remember what country he's from, but it wasn't legal to be a Christian. So he was in prison and preaching in prison. So then he's being beaten because he's preaching in prison. He comes back to the cell and they're like, oh, he beat you. And he's like, let's continue the service. And they're like, you just got beat for that. And he's like, oh no, the guard and I came up with an agreement. And they're like, really? Yeah, I'll preach and he'll beat me. I'm like, yeah, like
that way here.
I don't have quite that eternal perspective yet, I don't think. Like, yeah, devil, you can do whatever you want to do to me, but I know what I'm called to, and I will keep doing that until the Lord calls me home, because it's not even like until the enemy takes me out or whatever. Like, you don't get to do that.
No.
I'm here until the Lord says I'm not. And when he says I'm not, that's going to be a good thing. So
right. Then I win.
We can't lose.
Right? We can't lose. We can't lose. And I think there's such a shift of power that happens when you get to that place, right? Like we take the control and the power away from the enemy then and put it back with us, which is where it belonged all along. But how many times in our life do we struggle with, or I'll just say like me, like with control? Like, I just need to have control of this. I just need to make sure the outcome is what I want it to be. I just need to make, all the things all the time. And
or I even just need to know what's going on here.
I need to know what's going on. I need to know what's going to happen when I show up to this. I need to know what I'm supposed to say in this podcast. I need to know. Like we just have so many, I think as people, we have so many control issues, to be honest. And yet we hand over our control to the enemy all the time. The real, like the way to really get power and control is to take it back from the enemy and just be like rooted into the truth of God and be like, no, whatever happens, happens, because he's got me. And I win when I get to go home. So like, it's just this power shift. And we often don't look at it like that, because we look at our power within ourselves, and it's actually more about us taking our power back from the enemy. Yeah, and you can only do that by rooting into the Lord, because we can't in our own strength fight the enemy. Like, I walk out my door every day and I'm like, I already know I don't have it. They will literally kill me here. I already know that without him, it's not working. And so it's not about us. And it's not even about us in terms of us fighting the enemy. We occupy, right? We occupy and we hold that space, but the victory's already been won. Like, my victory is already promised. So I just hold that space for the Lord until it's done. It's by anchoring into him that we get our power back.
We rest in the Lord, and like we have that authority given to us. And when we agree with the enemy, when we fall for his tricks and schemes, we're surrendering power to him. So when we realize that and we're like, no more, you don't get to bully me here. You don't get to tell me what's going to happen in my life. You don't get to tell me I'm not worthy, whatever it is that he harasses you with the most. Like, you can take that back because it's actually yours.
Yeah.
And it was yours because God gave it to us in Christ, not because we think we're gods or any of that crazy stuff. Like, no, God gave us all authority when Jesus went back to heaven, and then we give it away because we're tricked or deceived or hurt or whatever.
Right. And it's because, and we've had it, right? So I was recently at a John Ramirez event, and I asked him, he did a Q&A, and I asked him specifically, like, in my village, we have 2 witches and a warlock, and forever am I fighting with them. I'm like, what do you do about that? Like, what am I supposed to do about that? And again, I was honestly, if I'm going to be like an honest, I failed here Christian, I was looking for the easy button. I was looking for him to give me like a prescription, a formula, ABC kind of a thing. Like, I was all about like, my notebook out, like writing it right down. And he's like, you know your identity and your mandate, and you stand in it. And they can't shake you and they can't touch you, period. Like, it was a very simple answer. And I was like, oh,
Oh, there's not this 7-step prayer that I can say and make them go away.
Are you sure? Like, I can't just take an action. I can't just do whatever. And no, the action is you have to know your identity and your mandate, and you have to stand in it in authority. That's your prescription. And it seems so simple, and it's so not, like it really takes some effort and some work to be like, oh, like so anchored into your identity and your mandate that you can't be moved no matter what the enemy throws at you.
Yeah. And so much faith, because you're truly fighting in the unseen instead of like, we want the things of, well, I can see I did all these things to check the list and here's the results I can see, where it's like, no, this is a battle in the spirit.
It is.
And you're not going to see, I mean, eventually you will see the fruit of that, but each day when you step out, you're not necessarily going to see the fruit of that.
That is true.
Because like you're stepping out, I have authority, I declare authority here, and the authority of darkness that has had that is like, no.
Yeah.
That's been ours, so like there's truly a battle of, you're like, no, this is the Lord's, and like, no, this is ours. And
I think that's very true for my village specifically, because my mandate is to take it back from the enemy. But I think that can be parallel to anything in life. I mean, any of us that have children, it's the same exact battle. The enemy wants your kids. He's coming for them. Are you going to battle for them or not? Like that's, I think it parallels to so much other stuff.
Yeah. And just those places in our hearts where he's like, no, I've had this place in your heart of being able to make you feel like you're a burden and get that to shut you down. Like I've had that for almost 50 years. I'm not giving that up.
Exactly.
So like, no,
yeah,
it's not yours. You can't have it anymore. But the walking that out of like, oh, I thought I was good with that. I thought I dealt with that. And then I hit with something new this week that I'm like, nope, there's still a pretty raw spot with that. So we got some more work to do.
We got to do something else.
We got to keep standing in this. Like, no, you really can't come back. You really can't have that. I'm not going back to that identity.
I think our identity is just so key. And it's no wonder that's where the enemy hits us, very early in life.
Early in life, when we're experiencing things and we're making meaning without logic. Because I work with so many women that are like, well, this doesn't make sense. I'm like, of course it doesn't make sense. You were 3. Think about it like a 3-year-old. Does it make sense to a 3-year-old? Yes.
Right.
Does it make sense to your 30-something, 40-something, 20-something? No. But does it make sense to a 3-year-old? Absolutely.
Right.
Because that's when you bought the lie, was when you were 3. So that's like, no, it doesn't make sense now. But that keeps people stuck so often too, of like, but it just doesn't make sense. No, it doesn't. Not if you're looking at it from what you know now. It doesn't.
No, I think that's such a great point, because I think that's where we miss it a lot in healing. Right. And that's where we miss when we actually need healing, because we can talk ourselves right out of it, because we're like, well, no, that's not whatever.
It doesn't make sense. I don't actually believe that. I know that's not true. Well, it doesn't matter, because there's a part of you, there's something in your heart that's like, no, I'm pretty sure that's right.
Right.
Like I can feel the pain, I can feel the fear, whatever it is. So I'm pretty sure I'm not understanding something, or like the enemy, like you said, like sometimes he's just not that smart. He knows he can't like win a battle of logic with an adult mind, because he doesn't have something better to offer. But to a child, does it seem like he's got something better to offer? Absolutely.
Yeah.
And he's willing to be louder, and he's willing to be, he's willing to lie. He's willing to sell you something he doesn't have.
Yeah. Yeah.
So yes, it makes sense to a child. Thank you very much.
You're very welcome. Thanks for having me. I love it. Anytime.
Yeah, you're welcome. Thank you for listening to today's episode of the Kingdom Mothers Rise Up podcast. I'm blessed to have you here. If you'd like to continue the conversation, you can join us in the Kingdom Mothers Rise Up Facebook community. When you're ready for more support, I have the Heart Doodling with Jesus monthly membership, periodic group coaching, and one-on-one personalized coaching as well. Thank you so much for being here. and we'll see you next time.